As you now survey your decades' work and those of many scientists around the world, and we have this better understanding of some of these underlying processes, I guess what the woman or man in the street wants to understand is, what's the guidance for me at a rough thumbnail level? Now, understanding that you're not a health professional, I'm not a health professional, but there is some science that has given us some indications.
Yeah, well, the science is saying that it's pretty easy for the average person, if they're lucky, to live about another 14 years if they do the right things. And that's not even my research. That's just looking at who lives longer. And
Mhm.
if you do the usual things, and I would start with don't smoke. And if you smoke, give up smoking. Eat well. So eat healthy foods, eat fresh foods, focus on plants, uh, get enough sleep, do exercise. These things have actually been shown to make you live another 14 years. But I think we can go way beyond that because that's old news. That's 1980s news. 21st century news is that we can turn on our survival circuits, the mTOR, the AMP kinase, and the sirtuins relatively easy. There was only one thing I could recommend. It would be to eat less often. And I'm not talking about malnutrition or starvation or hunger for a week or anything like that. Very little goes a long way, uh, so to speak. What I do is try to skip breakfast and eat a late lunch. And sometimes I'm too busy at work
Mhm.
and I'm not hungry anyway, and I go through to dinner. The point here is that you don't want to eat if you're not hungry. We're so socialized to eat 3 times a day plus snacks. Often we're not hungry anyway. So try
Mhm.
not to eat when you're not hungry. And if you're a little bit hungry, try to, drink a cup of tea or something. That it usually goes away. So why would you do that? Well, the lack of amino acids circulating in your stomach and of course in your bloodstream will turn on your mTOR defenses.
Mhm.
You'll get a low amount of energy because your glucose levels will go down a little bit. That'll turn on your AMP kinase defenses, and then sirtuins will come on as well. So you've got the triad of defenses. Now, if you do that once, of course, you're not going to live longer. But if you do it as part of your daily routine for a decade or more, it will definitely have an impact. We know that from people
Mhm.
who do this. There are
Mhm.
plenty of cultures in the world who have fasting as part of their activity.
Right.
So that is that, and that's pretty easy. The first 2 days, because you're not used to feeling hungry, you feel like you want to go eat. There's that drive. But I've been doing this now for a number of years, and I find that I have more energy.
Like you, I mean, the last few years, I've put myself through an intermittent fasting regime, or time restricted feeding, I think is now the phrase of the moment. And those moments where I do feel a bit hungry, I remind myself that the medical science tells me that I've got well over a day's worth of readily accessible glucose and glycogen in my liver and my bloodstream, and I've got many days, weeks worth of fat stored that my body can access. And this is psychological sense of hunger rather than a physiological sense of hunger. What about the things that you actually put in?
I love meat, but for a number of reasons, including health reasons, uh, my family tends to focus on plants. That doesn't mean that I won't eat meat occasionally, even once, even twice a week. But most of what I'm eating for breakfast and lunch, and probably most of the time during dinner as well, is plants. So what's the science behind that? Well, from my end, we know that having low amounts of certain types of amino acids, certain branch chain amino acids, as they're called,
Mhm.
leucine, isoleucine, valine, will turn on the mTOR defenses, which are, we know, extend the lifespan of many different species from yeast through to mice and probably dogs. Now, you can take a drug called rapamycin. That's where the R in TOR comes from, but that's got potential problems. First of all, you need a prescription, and it might be toxic in the long run. It's much easier to lower, at least part of the day, your intake of amino acids. And if you're eating meat 3 times a week or 3 times a day,
Mhm.
you'll always be suppressing your defenses. And plants, of course, have molecules, some of which I've termed xenohermetic molecules. We've
Right.
talked about hormesis. Xeno just means getting hormesis from other species. So when plants are stressed, they make molecules that turn on their own defenses. Plants have the survival circuit.
Right.
And we've now shown that those same molecules will turn on our own defenses if you eat vegetables that have a lot of color. And look for plants that have not been grown in mass production in factories. The type of plant you don't want to eat is an insipid lettuce with very little color and it's all just water. Those plants have been grown under perfect growth conditions, but growth conditions are the opposite of survival conditions. Yeah. And so organic foods, if you can get them homegrown or locally grown, are also great. You can dehydrate the plants, even if there's a little caterpillar growing on the or living off the leaf. Just flick it off, but that'll mean the plant is giving you, I think, these healthy molecules.
There are also supplements that people can take. So I hosted a dinner on super longevity with a friend of mine who's a great fan of your work a few years ago, and he talked to us about an enzyme called NAD plus and how one needs to boost one's NAD plus levels because they're seen to decline over the age of 50, and recommended a supplementation from something called NMN or something else called NR, which I've started to take because it's easier to find in the UK, as well as resveratrol.
I take resveratrol every morning. I've been doing that for about 13, 14 years now. That I'm taking about a gram, a teaspoonful. But Azeem, I put it into yogurt because by the time you've purified the resveratrol, it's not soluble anymore.
Right.
They take away those soluble forms. And so I mix it with a tiny bit of yogurt. It's not really breakfast. It's a spoonful of yogurt. But that seems to improve it. We've done human clinical trials with resveratrol, and we know that the fat that you take is very important for its absorption. And I do take NMN in the morning as well, about 750 to 1,000 milligrams. But that I can just dissolve in water or pop as a pill, and it will be absorbed in the body.
My understanding of NMN is that it's the posh version of NR and is only really available to bona fide scientists. It's not the thing you can pick up off Amazon or my health food store, I discovered.
Yeah, well, I'm a scientist. I'm precluded from selling supplements or endorsing them. So I'm turning molecules like NMN, derivatives of NMN, into medicines. Let me tell you why we think it works, because we've worked on this for a number of years. The sirtuin enzymes that I've mentioned, they don't work without NAD. Think of NAD as the petrol or the gas for these enzymes. They need it to work. And then resveratrol is the accelerator pedal. And together, that's why I think that combo is a good one to maximize your sirtuins, to be able to repair the DNA and efficiently make their way back to where they came from.